So for you to think that you got it all under control and you got everything covered, guess what? You're not dealing with the real you. But Jesus knows the real you. He knows the you that you try to hide. He says, listen, Peter, let me tell you a little something about yourself. That before the rooster crows, you will not have denied me once, but you will have denied me 3 times. Now, in baseball, it says 3 strikes, you're out. But in God's game plan, you can have 3 strikes and you're still not out because God is the umpire. And God calls the shots. God can change the rules of the game. That's why he prayed for his faith to fail not, because he was going to fail. And if you're going to fail, if you fall, just keep your head looking up. Looking up to the hills from which cometh my help, because all my help comes from the Lord. If you fail, just say, God, I need your help, because with you I'm more than a conqueror. He said, I know you're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. Just as we're living and breathing to this day, we're all going to fall at some time. But in the midst of our falling, don't lose your faith. Don't lose who God called you to be. Don't lose the essence of what he made you to be. Because that's the thing that's going to keep you going. That's the thing that's going to build you. That's the thing that's going to propel you even into your destiny. I thank God that I had tests in my life, because it was during the testing period that God was building my life. It was during my times of trials and tribulations that God was developing me and growing me. It was in my weakest moments that God says, when you're weak, that's when I am strong. And the more I understand this, the more I don't get down when I make mistakes. I just say, thank you, Jesus, for forgiveness. Thank you, Jesus, for grace. Thank you, Jesus, for mercy. Because your mercy is what keeps me from what I should deserve. And your grace gives me what I don't deserve. So I'm a living testimony of God's goodness and his grace. The reason why I'm standing here today is now an emblem of God's grace. The reason why y'all are sitting out here in these pews is now an emblem of God's grace. God's grace is sufficient for your life, because in the midst of your downfall, in the midst of your trials and tribulations, in the midst of the times where you get turned upside down, God's grace is keeping you. God's grace is sustaining you. God's grace is lifting you. And I've come to realize that I need God's grace. God's grace will also help you strengthen your brothers. God's grace will now call you that after you finish the course, that you can go back and help lift somebody else. I like that word. The word says, when you have returned. I looked up that word in the Greek. That word says, when you have passed. In other words, when the test has come before you. When you have passed the test. Now, he was praying for you the whole time while you were going through. But now he says, when you have been converted, when you have turned, when you have passed, now you go back and strengthen your brothers. Now, the responsibility for all of us right now is to go back and help somebody else. If God is blessing your life, if God is building